Okay. Hello, everyone. Just giving a minute for everyone to get logged in here. Hope everyone's doing well. For you that don't know me, I'm Chad McDaniel, president of Execs in the Know, and really just want to say thank you for your time today. I know how busy we all are, respectfully, but it's great to have you. And I can't wait to introduce our panel and our topic here shortly. But I got a couple slides I just want to go through as we kick off our webinar and our time here today. I hope everyone's doing amazing as you're continuing to keep customer number one. Reach out to me, Chad, Execs in the Know. I'd love to hear your success stories, what you're doing, what's going on in your respective groups, and you will hope to see you here soon at our next gathering. All right, we've got a little topic to go over today, really about transforming customer journeys through the convergence of data, technology, AI, and people. Nothing new. It's been a talk track that we've been having over the last year and a half, 2 years, but really it's kind of a fast forward state of the state of where we're at in April of 2024 and continued learnings that we're having as an industry. So I'm quite excited for the conversation here today. Couple of slides. Our time's going to go real fast. So I really feel we learn from each other. So as we're going through the conversation or even at the end, be taking down your questions, and then I'll come back on and we'll go through some Q&A. We'll do some final thoughts and wrap up. I want to give you some community perspective in addition to the discussion we've had from our panelists, and really say thank you to our panelists for their time today, as I will introduce them here shortly. If you're new to Execs in the Know, for the last 15 years, it's been a milestone, real fast time, but we got about 8,000 corporate CX community members in our community. We call it Leaders Learning from Leaders. We do a lot of sharing of insights, best practices, research content, topic events like this, and many other things. If you're not involved, get involved. It's free to join, and it's a great community of leaders sharing ideas. I want to say thank you to our board. Each member respectfully here does just a tremendous job for not only ensuring the success of our industry, but helping the conversations and things we're talking about here today. So all of them, I greatly appreciate your contributions to our community and Execs in the Know. You may have heard something recently about our Tucson event a few weeks ago. We host our national summit twice a year. That's it. I'm just going to ask you to save the dates. We're going to be in Palm Springs, September 24th, 26th. If you've never been to one of our national summits, you should come out. They're very engaging and enlightening, and the kind of people you rub elbows with at these events are just amazing. So mark the dates. I hope to see you. It's always great to be in person and meet the kind of people that you're going to participate with here today. And then finally, I'll say, the best way to get involved 24/7 is to join our private online community for the corporate leader. It's called Know It All. It's free to join. It's kind of like a LinkedIn on steroids. The conversations, we have over 1,000 people on this platform, many LinkedIn, but it's 100% CX related, and the conversations and insights are amazing. Drop me a note, chat at execsintheknow.com. Whatever you need to do, we're happy to get you there. All right, enough of Execs in the Know. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and willingness to participate. And as I said, I really am excited to have a real authentic conversation about kind of that state of the state and bringing different case studies and examples to it. Our community really appreciates your willingness to participate and step forward, so thank you. Himadri, I'll start with you, and we'll do really, really quick introductions because I want to get to the conversation. Himadri, I want to say a shout out to Teleperformance. Over the years, Teleperformance has been such an active voice and supporter of the community, but more importantly, the commitment of Teleperformance of elevating our industry and success, not only in our community, but as an industry as a whole. Just a big shout out and thank you for that. But Himadri, welcome. We've got a conversation to get to.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you for your kind words on Teleperformance. I feel very blessed to be a part of Teleperformance for the last 4 years or so. In my current role, I globally head consulting, as well as for US, I lead analytics, technology, and digital marketing. And I have the pleasure of moderating this panel discussion today with two of my, I would now say friends because I've been speaking to them for the last 2 or 3 days, Jeff and Prabhu. So why don't we start off with a quick introduction with Jeff and then Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks, Exec Simino and Chet, for that introduction, right, and having us here today. Excited to be here, really a privilege, right? And so my name is Jeff Judd. I am the Senior Director of Marketing Optimization at Hilton Grand Vacations. So I've been here about 3 years now. Prior to that, I spent a couple decades in banking with JP Morgan. So most of that time running and leading call centers, digital transformation and technology, right, a number of different things. And excited here to be at Hilton Grand Vacations, right, to continue that work, continue to work with BPOs and partners and technology, right, and that's part of this discussion and how we implement those things and really try to get the value out of it, right? You hear about AI and all these different great things it's going to do for us, but then it becomes, the how and some of the details around that. So really excited about this conversation we're about to have. Really consider myself kind of a lifelong learner, aspire to be a technologist, right? And just, always innovate and figure out what's next. And then how can we apply that to the business? And excited to be with this large peer group, right? To just hear some great questions and great insights and spend the next, half hour to an hour with you. And hopefully you get some value out of that. So looking forward to it.
So Jeff, what is it going to take me to get to your highest tier level of being a Hilton Grand Club member? You'll have to send me the details.
All right, I'll have to do that.
No, it's a great program and great brand, and we participated as a family all the time. So Good stuff. And then Prabhu, nice to meet you. I'm never in the job search thing, but I know Indeed does a number of great things. Maybe I should get into the job search thing, but I know we've got a lot of people in the community that have admiration and respect for your brand also.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for having me on here, and thanks, Himadri. And it's really awesome to be part of this peer group and be able to talk about this year. Chad, I was going to say, you don't have to necessarily look for a job. You could always help other people find jobs. Like we said, I help people get jobs. So we're constantly, if you talk to people and they're looking for something, Indeed's a great platform to help out, right? Again, my name is Prabhu. I've been kind of learning from Chad and his group and what they've been doing all along, kind of participating on the sidelines here and there. It's a great community. I highly recommend, if you're not part of it, to be part of it. Again, Teleperformance, we've been working with them. I've been in the industry 20 plus years. We've worked with Teleperformance over the years in multiple locations and multiple brands. I've been very lucky to been part of big global brands where we've had the fortune of using a lot of the providers today. So it's exciting to be part of this. Personally, for me, this is my second stint at Indeed. This is how much I love the brand. I left and I couldn't stay away. I've come back. I think we have a great mission, and I think we do a lot of great things. And I'm really excited to be part of this conversation and kind of talk through and help us all learn and grow together. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jim. And Himadri, before we go into the first poll here quickly, I just want to clarify for our audience. We're not here today to talk about what is AI. We're here to talk about current state. We're here to talk about ideas. We're here to talk about some of the challenges and ways we're continuing to approach it, kind of that current state of the state. Is that correct?
That is correct. Absolutely, Chad. And before we do the poll, I just wanted to kind of give a brief outline of, what are we going to cover? I mean, if you think about it, AI, data, technology, people, I mean, these are heavy topics. A couple of days could be spent on each. And what makes it even more interesting is we are talking about the convergence of all of these four together. So the way we wanted to kind of keep this conversation interesting and engaging, with questions coming in from you, hopefully, is to first start, exploring what are some of the emerging technologies, such as Gen AI, and then see how we can drive large-scale adoption. Then, of course, after AI, we have data. So we want to see how we unleash the true power of data by, driving prediction across customer journeys, driving personalization. But along with that, we also understand that as we go more invasive on personalization, data privacy also has to be looked upon. Mm-hmm. So we'll speak about that too. And
okay.
Sorry, Jeff, you had something?
No, go ahead. Finish your thoughts there, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I just want to make one last comment to our audience.
Sure. And then we want to kind of look at, in the general pursuit of digital excellence, how do we leverage, technology in general to drive, operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, and what could be holistically the success metrics for digital transformation in general. But I think we all recognize and understand that beyond AI data and technology, there is a softer side to any kind of AI deployment and success, which is where people, our highest asset, kind of comes into play, and which is where we kind of want to explore innovation culture, collaboration between different teams within our organizations, how we drive newer job roles and designs for our workforce, and also how do we balance out investments, cost cuts, and conclude the session by what's really next as far as AI data technology is concerned.
Sounds like a great plan. So audience, I recognize a lot of the names on this call today. We have some really brilliant minds today gathered, and I will be moderating the Q&A. So for our brilliant minds and audience, really, let's lean in. We learn together. Let's get questions out there as we're going through. But let's jump in. I'm going to come off camera, let you guys get started, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Chad. And we are going to be starting off with a poll. And is everyone able to see a question with a few options? Okay, I see nods from my panel. And one of the things I need to probably ask Denny is, how do I launch it? I don't see a launch button here.
So the poll is launched. We're actually voting right now, everybody. So audience, if you could just help me out, let's get people's perspective on here as you're voting.
Awesome.
You're seeing some of that now? Himadri, are you seeing some of the voting?
I already see it.
Yeah. So people are looking for, it's all coming in. I know it takes a second for everyone to figure out where's the voting at. They got it, but thank you for people voting here. Just give it a few more seconds and then we'll wrap it down and we'll kind of see where we wound up on this. I'm going to refresh the results. Oh yeah. You hit refresh results, Himadri, you'll see where we're at. Okay, good stuff. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Let's close the poll and we can kind of push it if you want to push it out.
Sure. Yeah, I just pushed the results to the audience.
Everybody seeing that? Prabhu, are you seeing it? Okay. All right. So let's speak to it. I guess it's out there. People are seeing it. So we've got a really close first and second.
Yeah. And I think, given the audience was mostly in the just exploring and the early adopters bucket, the nature of our conversations and the thoughts and ideas we tend to explore would be, in my opinion, of immense value to everyone. So let's get started talking about the current state of AI. And like I was saying earlier, one of the things that we are seeing with a lot of proliferation is generative AI. We are also seeing a lot of successful use cases. But one of the apprehensions that we also get to hear is there could be interpretation bias, and how do we address it? So why don't I start with Prabhu? Prabhu, what are your thoughts and ideas in terms of how you are implementing Gen AI, but more importantly, how do you think about scaling it? Prabhu, you're muted, I guess.
Thanks. Hopefully you can hear me now. Thanks for that question. And I think I'll talk about this a little bit in terms of just the focus of Indeed and how we're using it today, because I think then that makes it very relevant for us here. One of the things we've done is I think Indeed was recently nominated to be Fast Company's most innovative tech companies to follow, because we've launched a few different products to integrate AI into what we do day to day. And I think some of it goes into, we just launched a job description generator that helps employers quickly drive job descriptions. And I think it's very important because this AI technology now removes the burden from employers having to come up with this, right? As a hiring manager, you have to do a lot of things and you're focused on hiring talent. So we want to make this easier. I think our CEO, Chris, talks about it and says, work is key to society. And there is a true cost to this society of trying to hire people, right? We have over on the platform 30 million job seekers, you know what I mean? And 2.5 billion applicants, right? So how do we make it easier for companies to find talent and for the talent to get matched with the right job? So I think that's one way in which we're using AI. The other way is we're trying to simplify hiring, right? If there's a true cost to it, how do we make it simpler? I think the more technology we adopt, technology truly has to help us simplify our lives. If not, there's no real point to that, right? So I think a lot of this goes back to, as a hiring manager, if I come into the platform and I'm trying to find someone, can we make it easy for you to find that person? If you, let's say, for example, you're trying to hire a business analyst, you come in and say, hey, I posted this business analyst. Standardizing the job descriptions will now help, because sometimes, we've all gone through the job search where we look for our job and then it's like there's 9 different ways in which companies advertise. I've seen the customer service ninja, or the king of service, right? Like you're like, I don't even know if I qualify, because it's really hard to sift through all of this. So I think that's one way in which we're using data to streamline and make it easier for folks to match with each other.
That's really good to hear, Prabhu, and congratulations for being voted as one of the most innovative companies by fastcompany.com. And undoubtedly, I mean, the use case that you just described relates right at the top of any value chain, which is to start with agent hiring. Now, I know that in the hospitality sector, Hilton is a big brand. I'm personally very fascinated staying in Hilton hotels most of the time. Jeff, what are your thoughts in terms of how AI revolution and scaling and adoption is taking place as far as the hospitality industry is concerned?
Yeah, I think it allows some hyper personalization, right? When you think of the guest experience and what they're interested in and how you kind of curate the right experiences for them and present the right offerings to them, AI is definitely helping with that. Also, a real practical way too in our centers is how is it optimize the conversation. There's AI tools we're using today that transcribe the call as it happens, let you reference that call, provide next best action from your knowledge base and different things. So you can be very efficient, right? If you think of your new hire teams, you bring people into your organization. And how do you make sure they're speaking with the voice of the brand and they're customer obsessed, right? And they're providing that experience. And how do you get that experience to be scalable, right? For all of your agents across the world, across your centers, across your regions, right? Are delivering, in the voice of the customer, in the way that you want, providing the right solutions. Or there might be time where, there's weather that comes up or events that are happening. And in a real-time way, how do you provide meaningful actions to them? Or maybe in the past you couldn't, right? So all those things are really exciting for us. And then just to share too, I think one of the ways, right, and you guys mentioned this, you're developing this in-house, right? I think another way is, we partner with Teleperformance and using BPOs and using their tech stack and experience, right? Especially if you're just thinking about AI, it doesn't mean you have to become the expert yourself. There's many vendors and partners and organizations you can partner with to help you along this journey, right? There's probably many people on this call today that's their role, right? Is to serve up those solutions and technologies, right? So I think it's being curious. It's fallen in love with the problem, right? Not having a solution you want to force into the different areas, but really, like, what are you trying to solve for? And what are the tools out there to help you do it? Whether you're developing it in-house and develop it yourself, or you're partnering with a great organization to help you do that work. I think there's a couple different ways you can approach that.
No, that's a wonderful thought. And, in our experience in Teleperformance, and we partner with both of your organizations, we have seen that, one of the ways in which we can drive large-scale adoption is, through some concepts which we are putting to practice, such as reinforcement learning, classification, and also fine-tuning of the intents that get into the large language models. And when we do that, to both of your points, I think it helps improve the predictionability in our customer journeys. And we are able to more personalize experiences through, better segmentation, both in terms of a service portfolio as well as customer personas. But when we do that, there is often an apprehension that is attached to data privacy. And both of your organizations manage and process a lot of data across multiple customer segments, multiple business segments, multiple geo segments. How do you address the challenge or the opportunity with data? Maybe we can go in the same order. Prabhu, you go first, and then Jeff.
Sure. I think that's you know what I mean. I'm sure this is not the first time anybody's asked the question, or the last time somebody will ask this question, right? I think there's definitely a lot of concerns, and Indeed has our ethics guideline that we've published that says here's how we're committed to making sure that we're using data in the right way. And I think outside of publishing guidelines, I think part of it comes from top down and bottom up adoption within the company, right? First is the leadership saying, we care about this. This is an important topic. And as an organization, we're going to spend time and efforts coming up with a framework of how we do this. And we're going to do some internal rigor, making sure that everybody's aware of it, right? Like, I think part of this is awareness. Does every employee in the company know and understand what this means? What is this risk? And having continuous testing within the company. You know what I mean? Our security team does a really good job of phishing attacks and pulling things to us and being like, hey, do you know the difference between, right? I think the biggest risk is also, do we know what's human, what's a bot masquerading as a human? Do we even know what those are? And I think it's a really tough question because we're learning and this is evolving. Sometimes we have bots battling bots, right? It's like this sci-fi fantasy where you're like, we think in trust and safety, right? You're like, oh, somebody's like brute force attacking us or like kicking volume to something, and then we deploy our bots and we're like, is this a bot that we're trying to fight, or is this a human trying to do this, right? And are we making the job seeker experience terrible because we're trying to combat bots? So I think one is awareness is the key step to all of this, and it's a small progressive move to get everybody involved and understand why this is important, right? If you don't have everybody on board, you're not going to be successful. It's not an easy answer, but I think it starts with recognizing and starting to talk about it.
True. Your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you covered that very well, right? I think it's having transparent data usage policies, right? It's making sure everybody's aligned and the users understand how their data is being used and they have control over that, right? To add to that, right? Not to duplicate all the different things you said. I think it's an ongoing battle, right? And it's really important to establish trust and be transparent about how you're using that data. And then also too, I think it's important to be aligned, right? Whether you're in operations or in IT, and there's silos within organizations. And how do you have kind of one view and one goal that you're all moving toward, and working across those silos to have one voice, and especially in this space, right? Share your learnings, partner and always iterate and improve, based on those learnings. It's an ongoing challenge. You have to have the right guardrails, I guess I would say, in place, right, to establish and build that trust.
Yeah, and I'll just, do you mind if I add to this too?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other thing we also hear from job seekers and employers is that they welcome any help they can get to make the whole process better, as long as they feel like they're staying in the driver's seat and we have a human making the final decision, right? Like, I think that's key to all of this, right? Is we can deploy as much technology as we want, but at the end of the day, do we have the control ultimately to make that final decision? And as long as we have that and we can show evidence of that is what is happening, and being, to Jeff's point, being like, do customers know when they're interacting with AI, and do they know when they're interacting with a human, right? Like, I think that's important to have that distinction. So.
And to support and complement what both of you said, I also wanted to share with the audience one of the best practices that we have implemented in Teleperformance. This realization dawned upon us that in order to drive personalization and prediction, we don't necessarily have to deaccelerate our efforts because of data privacy guidelines from GDPR and other such standards that we have across the globe. So when we read through the standards, we realized that those standards are mostly concentrating in terms of how is data collected, used, and consumed. Now, if you're able to take the sensitive or the PIA information away from the data when we are, creating those personas or segments, then we are adhering to the privacy laws. At the same time, we are also able to drive personalization or at times hyper-personalization. So we followed a three-step approach in order to do so. So the first thing that we did was whenever we were analyzing, customer data, we were redacting all of the personally identifiable information, such as the names, the address, the telephone numbers, the social security, and so on and so forth. Once that was done, then we aggregated it into homogeneous groups in order for us to see that what are the different segments or categories of relationships that we can see in order to drive an outcome metric, such as conversion percentage in sales, or reducing churn in a retention queue. And once redaction and aggregation happened, then we wanted to anonymize all of that data in order for it to blend in with our large language models. So that's how we have been spearheading, some of the AI-related programs, but also ensuring that at all times we are able to manage the data privacy concerns that are usually attached to such programs, and because of which many times they don't see the light of the day. On that note, I just see a very interesting question that has come in from Brooks from BNI Global, where the question is that, do we see a pushback with our experienced associates when they are given AI-generated suggestions? And do we tier the support we deliver based on skill level, or do we support all associates the same? Does any one of you want to take that question, or I can give my 2 cents on it? But probably you're smiling, so you probably have the answer. Why don't you go for it?
No, you know what I mean? I get asked this a lot, right? So we have a number of our partners that do a lot of customer-facing support and interactions with our customers. And I started my career a long time ago too, on the phone for Microsoft supporting enterprise customers, right? And I'll say this, the most successful people were the people that could find the answers the fastest, right? It's not because, everybody knows about the same level of knowledge. What you do is, can you find the right answer in the right time, and how fast can you find it? So I typically see that people that understand this and are aware of this are always open to suggestions. And I think it's also a question of being able to position what the technology is doing for them, right? I think it has to be, hey, we're not trying to replace you with technology. We're trying to help you and power you and augment you with technology. And I think sometimes the message can be lost in translation. So being very hyper aware of how it lands in the front line, I think, is critical for success here. If people know and understand, they're going to be open. But if they think that, or if they don't know what the true intent is, then I think it gets confusing and can be tricky.
Yeah, that has been my experience too. To answer, so I think when you have really smart people, they also want to see that whether the AI recommendations are as smart and as well informed as them. And sometimes, at least from my experience, I've seen our smart workforce taking that responsibility to teach AI to get better, so that it can be, it helps, especially the new hires, improve their learning curve and get to faster speed to proficiency. Now, I think there was a second part of the question, which was, is it based on skill levels, or is it, a one-size-fits-all approach? Most of the times it would be the former, because, there are dedicated workforce attached to dedicated skill queues. But again, it's a case-by-case kind of a determination, depending upon whether we are going for a multi-talented, multi-skilled agent, or agents who are aligned to specific niche queues. Now, moving on to the next segment, which is where we want to talk about technology and process in general. And this is where maybe I wanted to start off with you, Jeff. I know you have been doing a lot of work with Teleperformance, where what are generally the transformative initiatives that are in play, which could be front-ended with technology, but supported with a very strong process reengineering solution prototype, And how does that help you in driving operational efficiency as well as guest satisfaction for your brands?
Yeah, I think a couple things. And you talked about the customer impact, right? What's the customer satisfaction measure, and how do we look at that? Also earlier, we talked about call intents and understand why are customers calling, what are the problems they're having, why are your volumes high on a particular day or month? Is it seasonality? Like, the business is always hungry for these insights, right? And as we use AI to collectively understand those insights at scale, where without AI, right, you're listening to calls, you're hearing anecdotal feedback through roundtables, maybe at a small sample size, right? And AI allows you to scale that and look at thousands and thousands of interactions to get the right training and the right insights to understand what's driving guest behavior, what are they calling, and then that helps inform your training mechanism too, as you think about what are you going to use this coaching time that's so precious with agents and leaders, right, to share, and to be able to do those things at scale has been really helpful for us. And then also, to your point, I think when you work with a BPO, right, or such as Teleperformance, or someone that has this scale and they work with a lot of different clients and a lot of different systems, they have this technology, right, they can lend to you. It allows you to get these insights that maybe at your own company you don't have in your center space, just given your scale. If you're a smaller size company, you have 3, 4, 5, 6,000 agents, very different than Teleperformance with 500,000 agents across the world, right, or employees, right? Difference in scale, right? So I think that the scale and experience of Teleperformance is helpful in that space, and your expertise, right? I think a lot of times, even if you're listening to this today, you're thinking, well, how am I supposed to figure this all out, right? Am I the AI expert? Well, you don't need to be, right? There's people that are, and there's partners you can team up with to understand, and they can teach and help you kind of along that journey. And there's many times that's exactly what I'm doing while I'm on this panel answering these questions, right? I feel like I'm always learning, and it's a kind of a continuous journey you can benefit from and leverage all those around you.
Jeff, that was a wonderful perspective. Thank you for sharing. And just as a follow-on question, maybe to you, Prabhu, you have been driving research and development transformation for many years. What are the top 2 or 3 success metrics that you've always attached to those programs for your organizations?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And sometimes, I have to think about it myself and be like, how much has the technology changed, and do we have to change what we're measuring, right? But at the end of the day, I truly think that it comes down to 3 basic parameters, right? Cost, quality, and time. As we deploy technology, is it helping us lower our cost without impacting our quality? And is it saving us time? Because time is money, right? So I feel like I always center around those 3 metrics. And I'm like, don't impact the quality as you reduce cost, and see how we can make the overall interaction shorter, right? Like, make it faster. It's always this, right? Nobody wants to call support or talk to a rep if they don't have to, right? Like, nobody wants to take the time out of using a product because you're taking time away from their core day-to-day usage to being like, you've now blocked me and I have to call you, right? Like, nobody wants that. So how do we reduce time? How do we push self-serve automation? But there are distinctions in customers too, right? Not everybody wants to self-serve. Some people want to talk to someone. So I think trying to recognize this, and that number has shifted over time too, like who wants to contact us, different multi-channels, right? Like chat, support, email, phone. Not everybody wants to do each, right? Like, so trying to figure the balance between all of this. But I think it comes down to the same 3 metrics. I always focus on those. Time,
Perfect.
cost.
Excellent. Yeah, quality, cost, of course, those, I mean, you mentioned the tried very, very well. Now, taking on to the next theme of this discussion is where we get into the softer side of AI. And we start talking about how do we energize the workforce of the organization and make AI or innovation a culture beyond the boardroom discussions, where most of us might be strategizing how to do this, but the real frontline ambassadors who need to drive this are our larger workforce. Maybe starting off with Jeff. Jeff, your thoughts in terms of how to propagate that culture across the organization so that beyond a certain point, it is self-energizing, self-motivating, and self-sustaining. for your organization?
Yeah, I think a couple ways I think about that, right? One of the ways is you think about the user experience, right? Many times you've got your users that are used to using the smartphones and technology, right? And they're using Apple and a lot of tech, and then they go to work, right? And they've got this green screen that they're going into, right? So one piece is that user interface and how do you create that excitement to bring them the new technology and really pair up what they're used to using with the experience they have at work. And the other thing is the culture. I think test and learn, learning things, having the right environments to try different things, being open, not falling in love with a solution. Do you have a particular product that you're just trying to fit problems around and kind of force it in, as opposed to really understanding in the organization what's going to benefit you, right? And then finding solutions that deliver that. And you're not tied to anyone, right? Staying open to whatever that may lead you. And then Prabhu talked a little bit about, too, as technology changes, right? Sometimes those things need to change or iterate, or you need to think about those differently. I mean, I've seen times where, sometimes you fall in love with a product or your solution a little bit, and you try to fit it into places in the organization. And quite frankly, there's times where you don't need that solution. So I think it's, testing and learning, being open to new things in your organization, and making sure whatever you're doing is truly solving a problem that you have, right? Really helping users, helping your teams, and there's some benefit to that. And it's really not just about, okay, I've got this great tool, and how do I just, kind of force it in and make it work? Your organization has to be comfortable giving feedback and kind of telling you what you need to hear. The good or the bad, as you build these models and use these tools, so that way it really has the impact that you want it to.
Jeff, you make a really good point in terms of problem solving. And I think somewhere innovation really boils down to how we can empower people to problem solve with the right levels of optimism, with the right levels of intellectual curiosity. So one of the things that we have done in Teleperformance is we have launched many programs where we have invited ideas, innovative ideas from our workforce, because they are talking to customers every day. They are experiencing process, technology, policy gaps. So they are best served really to tell us what might be missing. But that's not where we stopped. What we did was we said, hey, you know what? If you give the ideas, let's empower you, let's teach you through the course of the innovation implementation. So we then hosted, for example, botathons to drive automation related ideas. We hosted datathons for any kind of descriptive or predictive analytics. And there has been a lot of help that we've kind of got from many of our partners who are SaaS providers, where nowadays programming in general is not as tough or difficult as it was probably just about 5 years ago. Most of these solutions are plug and play. So anyone who is a non-techie can really get in, utilize the plug and play options and get a concept to reality. So that has propelled innovation culture in general for our organization quite a bit. Prabhu, do you see similar trends in Indeed too, in terms of how you drive innovation culture?
Yeah, and I think you guys all make some great points, right? And I'll start with this. Maybe it's counterintuitive, but I always talk about this as you can't have a really great innovation culture if you don't have grace in failure, right? You have to be able to say it's okay to fail, because if you don't say that to start with, then you're going to drive where it says you have to be successful in everything you do, and you don't necessarily always learn if you're always successful, right? Because then people aren't maybe taking enough bets or taking enough big bets to being like, let's go swing for the fences and see what happens. And if you don't, it's okay, right? So I always start with like, try experiments, but controlled experiments, so that, don't burn the place down, right? Like that's not okay either. We have a business to run, but do you have a safe space for the teams to try and fail so that you learn and then you iterate quickly, right? So how quickly is your iterative process? Because sometimes you could be trying too many things too. So having this overall view of, do we have a log of everything we're trying? Because sometimes when you have over 10,000 people in the company, everybody could be trying an experiment, and then you have like 5,000 experiments, and people are like, who did what here, when, how, right? And so it's always that, like, that's the big thing we learned in the Microsoft days was like, there's too many people and too many experiments. Like, do we have one controlled view of what everybody's doing? And you can't have it at that company level. Do you have it at a department level? Do you have it at your vertical, right? Like, do you have it at the product level? I think that's important. I think as we all try this new technology, what this is being able to recognize that not everything is going to be great, right?
That's a really good call out on the concept of iteration, and I think one of the phrases that's getting very popular in terms of any kind of AI or technology or digital transformation in general is fail fast, which is essentially conduct small experiments in a simulated environment so that you can control the outcomes before either spending too much of effort or monies or spends on it. Now, while we were talking about innovation culture, while we were talking about empowering our workforce to bring some ideas into fruition, we also know that there are some bigger programs or projects that require dedicated effort, dedicated skills, which is where we would need to get our business, our operations, and our IT teams into one table to discuss and execute. Sometimes not because of choice, but just by the design of how big organizations run, there could be some dissonance in terms of who is on the leading edge. Is it IT? Is it business? Is it both? Who does what? Really is a question to answer. What have been your experiences? And Prabhu, I know your organization is quite technology heavy. So do you see a great level of collaboration working, or do you sometimes see that there could be dissonance, which can be, of course, answered, but how do you see the evolution happening in your organization?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think this is going to land differently in different companies, right? But I think the answer to this, at least for us, is that everybody has to work together to make this happen. It's not it's not just to push to the IT teams or product or engineering, right? Or being like this, ops, product, technology, IT, everybody has to come together to make this happen, right? Because I think more and more the concept of, as we try to gatekeep and create security for AI, one of the biggest things that I think every company's come to this moment is like identity and access management. Who has access to the platform? Who can access the platform? Who's logging in? Who's logging out? And I think this has become more and more important, right? As we push more steps to be like, are you human or are you a piece of tech, right? And I think this didn't used to be such a big deal because, people could create like a Mickey Mouse email and register on the platform, right? And that was an okay practice. You can't do that anymore, right? Because then there's further implications to what that means and how that happens, right? I think the core concept is similar to, we all shop in grocery stores, right? And, you have like a Kroger rewards card or some grocery rewards card. Nobody usually cared about it. Every time you go to the store, you get a new one because you just get in and you go, I can get my eggs for like $1 cheaper, right? But think of now the same identity as your driver's license, and you wouldn't treat it the same way, right? So if we treated our identity as our driver's license and it gave you access to things and there was value to it, we would do that differently. So I think that's the concept of it, is all of us have to shift how we think about identity and access management.
Really, really good points. And Jeff, as we are infusing more and more digital workforce in our operations, do you see that there is a need for looking at how we drive talent strategy in terms of figuring out newer roles and responsibilities for our workforce so that they can start doing more value-added work?
Absolutely, right. I think what you find is the easy things are kind of demand mitigated out, whether in all the different channels, right? Whether that's voice or chat or email. And what you're left with is more complex, problems, right, to solve for guests and customers. And so, one of the things you need to do is to be able to, a lot of companies have these knowledge bases, right? Or if you're in a company that has multiple products, multiple, changes, and a lot of information to learn, how do you serve the right information at the right time to the right guest? And this AI technology can really help you in that space, right? One, it can help you with giving great service and answering the questions. I think the other thing it can do for you too is there's insights after that. What are the questions being asked as you iterate and serve up then better? Like if you think of any time a guest has to contact you as a breakage, right? And why did they need to? Did they want to? That's one thing, right? Of course they can. They prefer to. Or is it that they had to, right? Could your process be improved? Is there's something you can iterate and improve in that space? And I think AI is really helping you with those insights, right? Like where are the pain points? How do you remove friction from your process? And then your workforce has to be upskilled and reskilled. And how do you then deploy differently, right? If all of a sudden you have this automation that reduces the number of people you need for QA, are there other things you can do, right? Is there different pieces of the experience now you can go after and improve upon? Or how do you leverage and use those resources? I think as we all evolve and start to use this technology, it becomes, where do you invest, right? You know, where can we spend this savings or invest in our people differently, right? So the resources are still needed, but sometimes in different places, right? As you kind of automate and bring some of this to a reality and save the cost, and sometimes the job changes or is eliminated, right? But you need them to do something different. And so I think it's organizations that can reskill their workforce, they can pivot, are going to be very successful. And you have to be very adaptable and understand that too, right? People don't always like change, especially your top performers can be very comfortable with a system or an approach. And so there's a lot of cultural and kind of change management pieces I think you have to execute well, you know, to have people feel like they're along the ride for that journey, right? And they're not afraid or scared of it. And, you know, how do they just become part of the solution and you engage them the whole way along?
And Jeff, what you just said is a really good segue to the last, part of this discussion before we, have about 10 minutes or so for Q&A. I see that there are 4 more questions that have come in. Is what's next in AI? And personally, I feel that human cognition and consciousness might be hard to emulate, but nevertheless, there are some benefits of AI that we'll keep getting, and more so if you're able to balance out the cost cuts versus the investments that are needed in AI by maybe self-funding some of the initiatives and being able to realize the payback sooner than later. Jeff, maybe you want to carry on your thoughts in terms of how you're doing that with Hilton.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on that, right? I think that one of the ways is customer behavior prediction, right? Being able to use some of your analytics and data to understand how your customers are going to behave, because you can then better serve them, right? To really understand their decision making and serve things up. When you think of vacations and certainly a fun environment to be in, kind of coming from banking and some of that regulation, right? It's kind of exciting as people plan vacations and, special events, and how do you make that special and memorable based on what's important to your guest. I mean, it really allows this hyper personalization, right? And I think it's always balancing that with, not being too scary either, right? Like just with everyone will talk about the ads, or how do they know what I was doing if I get so close to a TV and then this ad pops up and gets presented to me from all this technology and consuming all this different stuff. I think that, that's going to continue to improve, and you're going to be able to then better predict customer behavior, which you can transform your customer experience if you can do that well. So really excited about what that means for us, and we continue to try to deliver for our guests and for our customers, and you've got to do it better than your competition, and you're competing against everybody, right? What their expectations are, and so really excited about what the future holds.
Excellent. I think let's get to our Q&A, and I can. Chad, is it fine if I, read the questions and then have?
Yeah, let's run through the questions. Let you run with it. I have a couple of comments and quick things, but I want to get the audience questions done. So please run quickly.
Sure. So I'm just looking at the question from Marcus in terms of saying that when we are querying AI, there could be different results for the same question. And sometimes if that happens, then that inconsistency could be, damaging of the confidence, the credibility. What's been our experience and how do we mitigate that impact? Prabhu or Jeff, any one of you want to volunteer for that answer?
Yeah, I mean, this is This is definitely an interesting problem and a question, right? Part of this is just the testing and iterative process of being like, what are we getting? And I think the other part of this is why everybody needs to work through their product engineering operations, so that you need robust business rules. And I think I see another question in there too, and I'll try to combine both of that in terms of time is, do you have explainable, or can you substantiate the reason for your AI-driven decision? And that comes from robust business process and business rules, right? We did this, we have this input, and here's why we're doing this. And I think those go hand in hand. Is unless you are clear on what you're spitting out, then it's really hard, because I think AI is going to have, and this is kind of similar to how humans behave some way too, right? It's kind of learning from us too. So sometimes we do change it, but like Gandhi says, I've changed my answer because now I have new information, or information that's changed how I view this, right? So it's similar to that. It's all about testing and making sure that we're iterating over time.
That is correct. And if I could just add my 2 cents to what Prabhu articulated really well, Marcos, I think if you are coming across that kind of a situation, you probably have a lot of exceptional scenarios in your process, and the best thing to do would be to maybe create a workflow design, augment human feedback so that you're able to continuously learn and train the machine, as well as maybe also do some kind of process mining or task mining, so that you're well versed with the fact that what could be the possible times when AI could throw out different answers. The number 3 is, with so many players in the contact center technology AI space, what do you think are the most important things to consider when looking at vendors? Maybe I can take this question. Well, I think there are 3 Ds here. Data, domain, and digital. Those are the 3 things that I personally like to evaluate experience of vendors as far as contact center or AI in general is concerned. Let's look at question number 4. What's our take on explainable AI? I think Prabhu, you already touched upon that. How can users understand the reasoning behind AI-driven recommendation or search results, particularly when dealing with complex algorithms? Take an example of a search result on Indeed. And I think, Prabhu, you already touched upon that and you spoke. Okay. So I have a question for me. Question number 5. When it comes to innovation culture, is Teleperformance doing anything in particular to balance a high level of autonomy with a high level of alignment across the company? Very interesting question. When it comes to giving feedback, and okay, let me answer it this way. Alignment has to be always with the way the processes, the policies are there. We necessarily don't want any violation as far as policy and processes are concerned. But autonomy and empowerment in terms of thinking about new ways to do things is equally important. And when we ask our human agents to give feedback to AI-related recommendations, most of the times we are asking them to align to the processes and the policies. But at the same time, we also record and discuss if there are any new ways in which they feel the process could have been executed, and where in a shorter time frame with no impacts to quality. And looking at question number 6 from my very good friend Blair, can you share lessons learned from recent AI transformational deployments that didn't deliver the results you had expected, either good or bad? Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently? Jeff, Prabhu, you want to take a quick shot at that?
I'm trying to think for an example of something. I think one of the things is, sorry, give me a minute. I was trying to think of like what we can share in terms of, I think we recently had a pricing model that we had to roll back. And I think that's a great indication of being like, hey, we tested something out, learned from our customers, right, in our rollout. And we said, this isn't necessarily what's working with our audience. And this goes back to the iterative testing. And so we said, let's change this. And it is a huge change. And I think we've done a really good job with setting expectations, communicating the change, and then saying, here's the substantiation of here's why we tried to roll this out and here's why we're rolling this back, right? So that's another example of, hey, we push a change out, we learn from that change, and then we say, here's how we're going to recover from this gracefully, right? Like, here's what we do. And I think the teams have done a really good job of like redoing that change. So that's one example.
And I can also add an example, and I see we have about 5 minutes, and I then hand it over to Chad to close it. But the example that I wanted to state for everyone's sake, and Blair probably is aware of it already, is repeat call is a very important metric and a very age-old metric in the environment that we are in. So once we were kind of putting a AI deployment in terms of understanding what are some of the key reasons for repeat calls. And as we all understand, repeat calls have a very standard definition of a repeat call from the same customer for the same call type in a defined period of 7 or 10 days. But when we infused AI, we actually saw a revolution that we were not expecting, which is a revolution of conditional probability, where we saw that there was a 47% chance if a customer, say, and this was a HRO outsourcing kind of a program, where we saw that if a customer, if an employee of that company is calling in for loans and that loans request is denied, there is a 47% probability that they will probably call next time to ask for recovering some monies from their hardship account, which is 401k. So these kind of clusters that could exist based on journeys is sometimes not very visible in the way we define processes. And those are some of the revelations, some of the interesting aspects of the journeys that could be harnessed by looking at data in a unified approach with AI. On that note, over to Chad.
Well, gentlemen, you only gave me a couple of minutes. I'm going to go really fast, but thank you. And just a reminder to all of our attendees, love to see you in Palm Springs. We're going to be September 24th, 26th in person. Do not miss the gathering. It's quite dynamic, the summit, so make sure you do that. So here's a real quick one. Gentlemen, and this is abroad, but when do you feel customer-facing generative AI is going to be more mainstream for us as brands? 2 years, 5 years? I mean, what do you feel that turning point is going to be and why? Quickly. Do you have a prediction?
I think Jeff was saying something. Jeff, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I think it's probably more than 3 years away, right? I think that obviously we hope to get some improvements and continue to iterate, but I think we're multiple years away from kind of seeing that more widespread and to the place we want it to be.
I think there's two parts to this question. One is, how soon is the tech going to be ready, and how soon are we as humanity going to be ready for the tech? And I think those are two different ones. And I think the tech will be ready in 2 to 3 years, but as people, it might take us a little bit longer to be ready for it. So,
and Chad, I think the proliferation would be faster for some of the organizations who have already embraced AI in a big way, versus the ones who are still kind of getting into the journey. For them, it's probably a 5-year horizon. For the others, like Jeff mentioned, maybe anywhere between 3 to 5.
Well, I'm putting something together in a time capsule, and we're going to pull that time capsule out in 5 years and see what we said today and where that ultimately is. It'll be fun to do that on stage in 5 years, to pull out the time capsule. One thing I would ask Himadri or whoever, Himadri mainly, but one thing I hear a lot in the community is how to leverage the data collected through customer care that transforms reactive insights into predictive and prescriptive prioritization. So toggling from using AI to solve an intent to using AI to improve the full journey. If there's anything in the way of case study or continued learnings, can you make sure, Himadri, you get that to us? I'd like to push it out to the larger community on those pieces. So other than that, I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I know our time is up. Community, you do not need to do this journey alone. If you're not a member of the Execs Know private online community called Know It All, you should join. We have 1,000 people in that platform alone, and great company you can be with. I just want to say, keep customer number one. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. We're making great strides as an industry. We're very transformative right now, what's taking place, but just keep customer number one. And I'm going to wrap it up on that. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Everyone be well. And that will now conclude today's conversation.
Thanks.